My name is Stella. Today I died. On my 26th birthday, my stepsister pushed me straight into a swimming pool. My fiancé just stood right next to her, watching me struggle, choke, and slowly drown because he knew I couldn't swim. As my consciousness faded, a voice whispered in my ear, "You have one chance to go back." When I opened my eyes again, everything was loud and chaotic. My vision cleared, and I saw a room full of hideous, oversized red and green tracksuits. Wait, isn't this my ugly high school uniform? Before I could process this, a woman in her 40s walked into the room and turned on the projector. The monthly exam results are out. The class did well overall, except for. She stopped and glared right at me. Some students are maintaining their usual stellar standards. Her voice was dripping with sarcasm. It hit me instantly. I actually traveled back in time. Back to my freshman year of high school. Looking at the leaderboard on the big screen, my name was dead last. Except for English, which was barely passable, every other subject was an absolute disaster. I used to be a terrible student back then. The only reason I got into this elite class at the city's top high school was because of my wealthy entrepreneur father, Arthur. Everyone else scored in the 500s or 600s, while I barely scraped 300. But because of my dad, no one dared to say a word to my face. Except for my homeroom teacher, Mrs. Gable. "Stella, stand up." My mind hadn't fully recovered from the trauma of drowning. I couldn't believe what was happening. I stumbled out of my seat and started walking toward the classroom door. "Fine, I'll go stand in the hallway," I muttered to myself. The classroom went dead silent. Mrs. Gable didn't expect me to be this defiant. "Stella, what do you think this classroom is? Get back here." But she was too late. I had already stepped out of the door. Right then a girl bumped straight into me. The moment I saw her face, the blood in my veins turned to ice. My entire body shook uncontrollably. "Hi there," the girl said. Her voice made my skin crawl. It was Chloe. In my past life, Chloe and her mother invaded my world during this exact summer. Because of them, I lost my gentle mother, lost my father's love, and everything I had ever owned was ripped away from me over the next 10 years. While I stood there paralyzed, Mrs. Gable pulled Chloe into the classroom. "Class, we have a new student. Chloe, please introduce yourself." As the girl on the podium put on a timid, helpless act to start speaking, I marched right up to her, raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. The slap echoed through the room. It was the hit I had wanted to give her for 10 whole years in my past life. The class gasped. Mrs. Gable quickly grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. Chloe covered her face, tears welling up in her eyes. "What did I do to you?" She looked like an innocent little lamb. If I hadn't spent a decade dealing with her, I would have been fooled by that face. It wasn't until my mother died in my past life that I realized Chloe's appearance in my life was a calculated trap from the very beginning. She already knew exactly who I was. But in my past life I was so stupid. I couldn't see the rot beneath her skin and actually became best friends with her. "Stella, are you insane? Why did you hit the new student?" Mrs. Gable roared. I stared daggers at Chloe and smirked. No reason. Just felt like slapping a snake. Mrs. Gable was practically fumes. Naturally, I was dragged straight to the principal's office. As I walked down the hallway, my mind cleared up. The memories came rushing back like a flood. Chapter 2. In my past life, Chloe transferred into my class midway through freshman year. She looked frail and thin, barely reaching my chin, always keeping her eyes cast down. With my wild and reckless personality back then, I didn't care about someone like her. But on the very day she transferred in, I got cornered by a bunch of street thugs on my way home. She showed up out of nowhere, threatened to call the police and scared them away. Because of that, I considered her my best friend. I protected her, brought her to my house, and introduced her to my mother. Thinking of my mother made my chest tighten. That suffocating feeling returned. Beside me, Mrs. Gable was still lecturing. "Stella, you are still my student. You can't just do whatever you want in my classroom." I nodded blankly, but then she sighed and said, "Chloe comes from a single-parent home. She has had a very hard life. I know it might be hard for a rich girl like you to empathize, but you need to respect your classmates." Hard life. Empathize? Empathize with a murderer? She didn't have a dad, sure, but she had a very capable mother. Tired of hearing the lecture, I faked an apology. As I left, Mrs. Gable sighed. Stella, I know you are a good kid at heart, but you need to act like a student. I suddenly realized she wasn't actually as mean as I remembered her being. When I got back to the classroom, I found that Chloe's seat had been moved right next to mine. She acted like she had already forgotten the slap and smiled warmly at me. I didn't even look at her. I kicked her chair hard. Are you blind? Move. I made it very clear I wasn't to be messed with, so she didn't dare talk to me for the rest of the period. This gave me time to plan. God gave me a second chance at life, and I wasn't going to waste it just throwing tantrums. This was my life and I was going to rewrite it flawlessly. And I was absolutely going to destroy Chloe. The next period was English. The teacher was handing back our monthly exams. My paper was covered in doodles with 0 correct answers. I pinched the bridge of my nose, realizing how childish and stupid I used to be. The reading comprehension section this time was quite difficult. Is there anyone who can translate it for the class? The English teacher asked. The room went dead silent. I glanced down at my paper. Was it really that hard? Even the elite students looked clueless. But looking at the text, it was incredibly basic, just a standard short story. I remembered that after my mother died in my past life, I moved abroad to escape my family. English had basically become my second native language. I can do it, teacher, I said, raising my hand casually. Whispers broke out around the room. Even the teacher looked hesitant. All right, Stella. Give it a try. I translated the entire passage flawlessly. I explained the multiple meanings of the advanced vocabulary and broke down the grammar rules for every single answer. By the time I finished, the teacher didn't even need to review the lesson. Excellent job, Stella. It's clear you put a lot of effort into studying this paper. The teacher praised genuinely. Chloe stared at me, her eyes full of suspicion. The intel she had must have told her that I was just a brainless rich slacker. Teacher, I have a great idea to help everyone improve their English, I said sincerely. Since I had just performed so well, the teacher listened carefully. I continued. Let's have students take turns explaining the questions to the class, just like I did. Peer teaching was a highly efficient method used all the time abroad. Before the teacher could reply, I added quickly, I heard Chloe has excellent grades. Why don't we let her try the next section? Chapter 3. Chloe grew up in a rural school and had 0 foundation in English. Faced with advanced high school English, she panicked entirely. She hung her head and stammered, I'm sorry, teacher. I don't know the answers. I feigned shock. But these are the easiest questions on the test. How could you not know? The teacher frowned. Chloe had been admitted to this elite track on a special scholarship, yet she couldn't even answer a basic English question. No teacher likes a student who gets special treatment but can't deliver results. I knew that game perfectly. This is an advanced class. Results are everything. Chloe, take your seat, the teacher said coldly. For the rest of the class, Chloe kept her head down, too humiliated to look up. Meanwhile, I actively participated and answered every question. Felt incredible. So this is what it feels like to be a top student. Watching Chloe suffer was pure bliss. The study session ended at 9 o'clock in the evening. Students packed up and left, but Chloe kept lingering around her desk. Remembering exactly what happened on this day in my past life, I smirked and walked out of the school. The walk from school to my house took about 10 minutes, crossing through a long, narrow alleyway. Tonight, the streetlights in the alley happened to be broken, leaving the path pitch black. Hey there, pretty girl. A disgusting male voice echoed from the shadows. A guy with bleached blonde hair stepped out, flanked by 4 thugs. I stood my ground completely calm. I even smiled slightly. I suggest you guys leave right now. The blonde guy thought I was bluffing. Feisty. I like that. He reached out to touch my face. Right on cue, a familiar voice shouted from the end of the alley. Get away from her. Chloe was standing there holding up her phone. If you touch my classmate, I'm calling the cops. The exact same line. Word for word from my memory. Chloe, come here, I called out, walking toward her. The moment I reached her, I grabbed her hand and forced it to slap my own face hard. Right at that second, A black sedan screeched to a halt at the entrance of the alley. A man jumped out of the car in a panic and rushed over to me. "Stella, what happened?" The thugs immediately scattered into the dark. Chloe stood there frozen in shock. I let tears stream down my face looking up at the man. "Dad, I'm so scared. I don't know what I did to offend the new girl. Why did she bring those people to hurt me?" In my past life, Chloe was a master at playing the victim. I was simply using her own script against her. Arthur had just left his office and driven over because I called him earlier to pick me up. He never expected to see his daughter surrounded by thugs and getting slapped right as he arrived. He glared furiously at Chloe, his rage exploding when he recognized her face. "Who gave you the right to put your hands on my daughter?" Chloe waved her hands frantically. "No, sir. I didn't. She did it to herself." "Are you telling me my daughter slapped her own face? Do you think I'm blind?" Arthur roared, dragging her to the side. I could faintly hear him hiss at her. "I didn't pull strings to get you into this elite school just so you could terrorize my daughter. Tell your mother I won't be coming over anytime soon." And there it was. My hypocritical father was already sleeping with that woman at this point in time. Chapter 4. "Dad, do you know the new girl?" I asked, putting on my most innocent, clueless face. Arthur's expression stiffened. He wasn't a good enough actor to fool me anymore. "Of course I don't know her. But she dared to touch my daughter, so I had to put her in her place. Still, she is your classmate." Seeing that he was about to make excuses for her, I cut him off. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll make sure to get along with everyone." Surprise flashed across his face. "Stella, you've grown up." I smiled sweetly. "Because I want to be a good daughter for you, Dad." Inside, I felt utterly disgusted. "Stella, I've been too busy with work lately to spend time with you and your mom. I'll come home more often from now on." Arthur looked remorseful, but it only made me sick. My heart had been broken for 10 years. It didn't know how to hurt anymore. Only revenge could satisfy me now. When we got home, we walked past the swimming pool where I had drowned in my past life. A wave of dizziness hit me. The house setup was exactly as I remembered it. Good. Chloe hadn't left a single trace here yet. "Stella, you're home." A familiar voice echoed from upstairs. I froze, staring at the staircase as the footsteps came closer. Then that gentle, beautiful face came into view. My mother, Valerie. The tears burned in my throat. The moment I saw her, I ran up the stairs like a madwoman and threw my arms around her. "Mom, I missed you so much." Then that gentle, beautiful face came into view. My mother, Valerie. The tears burned in my throat. The moment I saw her, I ran up the stairs like a madwoman and threw my arms around her. "Mom, I missed you so much." My mother was startled by my intensity. "Stella, sweetie, what's wrong?" I just kept crying, letting out all the tears I never got to shed in my past life. In my previous life, before I even graduated high school, Chloe's mother, Brenda, began showing up at our house constantly to harass us. Chloe had wormed her way into Arthur's favor, and the two of them completely stole our place in the family. On the day I finished my college entrance exams, I came home only to find my mother lying at the bottom of the stairs, lifeless. Brenda was standing on the second floor with a victorious smile. "Your mother fell down the stairs herself. She was just too careless," Brenda had said. "My mother died before the ambulance even reached the hospital. She never got to say goodbye to me. Worse yet, before the funeral period was even over, Brenda and Chloe moved right into our house. When I screamed and fought back, Arthur slapped me across the face. He told me, "You will respect your Aunt Brenda. We are a family now." That was the moment my living nightmare began. It didn't stop until Chloe stole my fiancé. On their wedding day, she proudly confessed to me that my mother's fall was entirely Brenda's doing, and that my father had known the truth all along. That was why I fought her, and why she ended up pushing me into the pool to drown me. "You poor thing, why are you crying like this? Did someone bully you at school?" my mother asked softly, wiping my tears. My heart felt so warm. "No one dares bully your daughter, Mom. I just really missed you." "Silly girl, you just saw me this morning." "I don't care. I missed you so much." I held onto her tightly, soaking in her real physical warmth. Arthur walked over. "Look at you two. crying and laughing over nothing. He rarely cared about us. In my past life, he was supposed to be spending tonight with Brenda and Chloe. Then within a week, my mother received a call from Brenda exposing the affair. My mother looked fragile, but she was fiercely proud. After a massive screaming match with Arthur, the stress broke her health. She spent the next 2 years coughing constantly. This time I had disrupted Chloe's plans. I didn't know what Brenda would try next. Chapter 5. Once I started paying attention in class, I realized Chloe was never actually smart. She couldn't keep up with the lessons at all. She was just genuinely slow. In my past life, she survived the class by leeching off my status. But in this life, things were much harder for her. We agreed to hand in the classwork before the long break. Chloe, why haven't you turned yours in? The class rep stood by her desk, looking completely annoyed. I just have one more question left. Can you please wait for me? Chloe pleaded, looking incredibly helpless. But using that pathetic act on teenage girls only bred resentment. I stood up slowly and purposefully knocked over my water bottle, soaking her exam paper completely. Oops. Looks like you'll have to start over, I said, winking at her wickedly. She clenched her fists, trying to suppress her rage, and forced out a few tears. Stella, what did I ever do to you? What did you do to me? What a hilarious question. I could write an entire book on what you did to me. I leaned down and whispered into her ear. You know, you look exactly like a toad when you cry. She stopped crying instantly, completely unable to read me. The next day, Brenda showed up at the school gates. She was wearing a loud, obnoxious red dress and massive sunglasses, looking like a washed-up celebrity trying to turn heads. You must be Stella, she said entirely too sweet, reaching out to grab my hand. I stepped back with open disgust. And you are? I played dumb. I'm a colleague of your father's. I came to pick you up. Your father is having dinner with some friends at the Radiant Lounge today. Colleague? How professional. Arthur was the CEO, and Brenda was barely a low-level clerk. In my past life, she never came to pick me up for dinner. My actions were clearly rewriting reality. But this was exactly what I wanted. As long as Brenda was dealing with me instead of harassing my mother, I had a million ways to handle her. All the way to the restaurant, Brenda kept trying to act close to me. Your father always says you're a good girl. I can see why. I adore you already. Look at how beautiful your skin is. So young. I'm so jealous. She was trying hard to flatter me, clearly having studied how to talk to young girls. I watched her fake face in the rearview mirror and said in my most innocent tone, Well, Auntie, it's normal for skin to sag when you get to your age. You should probably look into Botox. Her face stiffened. Before she could recover, I pressed on. But why would my dad gossip about our family with a low-level employee like you? I pointed directly at the massive gap in status between her and my father. A flash of pure rage crossed her eyes. She only got her job because of her affair with my dad. With her middle school education, she wouldn't even qualify to sweep the floors there normally. In my past life, after my mom died, she married my dad and became the lady of the company. She even managed to scheme her way into becoming the second largest shareholder. But those shares belonged to my mother. They should have been passed down to me. In my past life, I was too reckless and weak, which was why she managed to crush me into the dirt. Auntie, do you always wear such bright clothes? My dad actually despises loud colors. But I guess it's not your fault. Have you ever heard the saying? The emptier a person's mind is, the flashier they dress to compensate. My insults were brutal, delivered with a completely blank, innocent smile. How dare you talk to me like that? I am your elder, she snapped, losing her temper. Hanging around my dad for so long had made her forget her place. An elder? I chuckled. What kind of elder are you? You're just an employee at my dad's company. Stop putting on airs. Stella, she screamed at me. The car pulled up to the entrance of the Radiant Lounge. Arthur saw the vehicle and walked over immediately. Stella, what took you so long? I got out of the car, looking incredibly guilty. Dad, I think I said something to offend this lady. I really didn't mean to. Brenda's face was still twisted with anger, but the moment she looked at Arthur, she forced a gentle smile. It's nothing, Mr. Miller. Kids say silly things. Really, Auntie? But you just said you were my elder and demanded I show you respect, I added immediately. An elder. Arthur caught the word. When he looked at Brenda, his eyes were sharp and dangerous. No, Mr. Miller, I didn't mean it that way, I just… Enough. Go back to the office. I don't need you here. Arthur cut her off coldly, grabbing my hand to walk inside. Behind us, Brenda bit her lip, her eyes red with tears, but she didn't dare say another word. I knew my father perfectly. He was a hypocritical, status-obsessed man who never truly trusted anyone. His ego could not tolerate being challenged, especially by subordinates. If someone failed to show absolute submission, he would discard them instantly. The moment Brenda and Chloe showed even a hint of greed or overstepped their boundaries in front of him, he would instantly despise them. Chapter 6. The moment I stepped into the private dining room at the Radiant Lounge and saw Dominic, I knew things were going wrong. In my past life, Arthur didn't introduce me to him until my junior year. Our families grew close and I eventually fell madly in love with him. I was only a freshman right now. Why was he appearing so early? Dominic still looked exactly like the cold, arrogant hypocrite from my memories. In my past life, I chased him blindly for 2 years, and we eventually got engaged. After my mother died, he was the only good thing left in my world. Even though he never gave me a real answer and always treated me with cold indifference. But later he slept with Chloe. He had the audacity to scream at me that I was the reason he couldn't marry the woman he actually loved. When I caught them in bed together at that hotel, the pain was unbearable. I broke off the engagement immediately to get out of their way. But my sacrifice didn't buy me a single ounce of mercy. In the empty garden during our canceled engagement party, he stood by and watched as Chloe pushed me into the pool, watching me drown without lifting a finger. Stella, people like you deserve to die. His vicious words echoed in my head, overlapping with the face of the boy standing right in front of me. Hi, I'm Dominic. Hi, I'm Stella. Nice to meet you. I smiled sweetly and shook his hand, catching the sudden flash of attraction in his eyes. In my past life, I realized why he chose Chloe over me. After my mom died, my personality became incredibly toxic and clingy. I treated him like a life jacket, never realizing he was actually a poisonous snake. Dominic played a massive role in my tragic end. Stella, you might not know this, but Dominic is a senior at your school. If you ever need help with anything, just ask him. Dominic's father introduced him with a smile. His family partnered with ours in business, but the reality was that his family relied heavily on mine to survive. Dominic chimed in quickly. I'll make sure to take good care of Stella. I mocked him silently. Oh, I'll take good care of you, Dominic. The future is long, and I will make sure to return the favor. The dinner felt completely tasteless as I calculated how to save my mother. Arthur's infidelity couldn't be changed, but I refused to let my mother ruin her health over him again. A week later, the midterm exams arrived. I went from being at the dead bottom of the class to ranking in the top 30. My math skills were still lacking. Even though I studied like crazy for 2 months, I only managed a 90. The curriculum abroad was just too relaxed compared to this. As for Chloe, her name was exactly where it belonged. Dead last in the class. Everything seemed to be going perfectly according to plan. My grades were up, my mom was alive, and Brenda and Chloe were temporarily keeping their heads down. But the moment I got home that day, I felt a heavy tension in the air. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering echoed from upstairs. My mother sat on the sofa, her eyes closed in deep pain. Arthur, do you want a divorce? The confrontation was happening anyway. She found out about the affair. I rushed into the kitchen, grabbed the medicine I had prepared in advance, and brought her a glass of water. Mom, please don't get upset. Take your medicine first, okay? Perhaps shocked by how calm I was, she took the medicine obediently and let me lead her upstairs. I turned back to look at Arthur. Even though my heart was burning with hatred, I kept a compliant look on my face. Dad, I'll go calm Mom down. It wasn't time to completely break ties with Arthur yet. I couldn't let my mom fall into the same trap as last time. My cooperative attitude calmed Arthur down from his panicked state. He seemed to realize something and bolted out of the front door. Tonight, Brenda wasn't going to get any peace either. Chapter 7. My mother sat silently on the edge of the bed. When I walked in, her first words were, "Stella, are you hungry?" The tears threatened to spill. I threw my arms around her. "Mom, don't be scared. I'll always be here with you. You already knew, didn't you?" She was incredibly smart and knew me too well. She figured out that my sudden change in behavior was connected to this. I nodded. Tears streamed down her face. My usually elegant, poised mother actually cursed. "That bastard Arthur. Letting his filth get dragged in front of you." Even in a moment like this, her first priority was protecting me. "Mom, I've grown up," I said, handing her a warm glass of water. In my past life, we were completely crushed by Brenda and Chloe. I had completely forgotten that my mother used to be a fierce, strong woman. "Mom, look at this. I did really well on my exams," I said, pulling out my report card. "I had ranked 6th overall. How did you improve so fast?" She was confused, but the joy quickly overtook her sadness. "Mom, it's like my brain suddenly woke up. These school subjects are easy for me now. So, dealing with the trash in our lives should be easy for us too, right?" My mother's eyes turned red. Her strong facade cracked, and she covered her mouth, letting out a quiet sob. "Stella, you're so young. You shouldn't have to carry this." She gently brushed the hair away from my forehead. Her eyes filled with warmth. "I won't be afraid. I will never let anyone hurt you again." In my past life at this point, Chloe had already used me to infiltrate our house and win Arthur's favor. Brenda had become arrogant enough to call my mother directly. But this time, Brenda had timed an intimate text to Arthur perfectly so that my mother would see it. And because I was there to contain my mother's immediate rage, Arthur left the house realizing exactly how ambitious and dangerous Brenda was getting. The next day, Chloe showed up at school looking entirely too pleased with herself. She even looked down her nose at me when she walked in. I called Arthur's company and confirmed that neither he nor Brenda were at work. When school let out, I saw a company car pick Chloe up. I recognized the plates instantly. I was planning to follow her secretly, but Dominic blocked my path. "Stella, I heard your grades improved significantly. Congratulations." I didn't want to waste my time on him. I just wanted to track Chloe. But he kept talking. "I heard you're struggling with math. If you want, I can tutor you." In my past life, Arthur arranged for him to tutor me, which was how I fell for him. I was about to reject him, but a sudden realization hit me. I turned around with a bright smile. "Sure, I'd love that." If I used my head, there were very few things that could make Arthur react this drastically, and only one thing related to Brenda. In my previous life, how did Brenda manage to kick my mother out of the house so easily? Because she got pregnant. And the private doctor told Arthur it was a boy. Arthur had been desperate for a son for decades. That news was enough to make him overlook all of Brenda's flaws. But Brenda never carried that child to term. At 4 months pregnant, she suffered a miscarriage due to a severe dog hair allergy. No one else was to blame, it was just karma. She was walking down the street when a stray dog jumped on her leg, causing an allergic reaction that triggered the miscarriage. But this was my perfect opportunity for revenge. Chapter 8. Arthur didn't bother coming home until 3 days later. He looked glowing and ecstatic, entirely forgetting that his affair had just been exposed. My mother stood at the top of the stairs looking down at him. "Arthur, we need to talk." Predictably, another massive argument erupted. He didn't even seem to care that he had been caught. Faced with my mother's accusations, he simply said one thing: "I want a son." "That woman is pregnant?" Arthur nodded, his tone instantly turning manipulative. Arthur looked incredibly guilty when he saw me. "Stella, why are you here?" I kept my head down. "It's the weekend, Dad." "Mom, drink this first." Arthur left after throwing out one last line. "I'm going to be busy and won't be home for a while. Valerie, think about it. I'll wait for your answer." Once he was gone, I looked at my mother. "Mom, you're going to divorce him, right?" The woman in front of me hesitated. "Sweetie, if we divorce, what will happen to you?" "Mom," I said urgently, "whether you believe me or not, staying married to him will only make my life a living hell." Perhaps because I sounded so serious, my mother fell silent for a long time. Eventually, she raised her chin, her eyes hardening with determination. "I want a divorce." I won't let anyone jeopardize your future. All it took to make her choose completely was me. The next day, my mother put on a sharp business suit she hadn't worn in years and headed straight to the company headquarters. After I was born, she had stepped back from running the business. On paper, Arthur ran everything, but the reality was that my mother held 30% of the company's shares, only 10% less than Arthur. Before she left, she smiled and ruffled my hair. Stella, what kind of tea have you been giving me lately? My throat feels incredibly clear and comfortable. Just some herbal soothing tea, Mom, I replied with a smile. That was the exact prescription a traditional doctor had written for her when her lung condition deteriorated in my past life. I had memorized the ingredients perfectly after filling it for a whole year. After watching my mom drive away, I looked down at my phone. A text from Dominic popped up. Stella, I'll be waiting for you in the music room during evening study today. I replied with a simple okay, and walked toward the school. It was Monday morning, and I stepped into the classroom right as the bell rang. Chloe was burying her face in a mountain of books, pretending to study, but I could clearly see her texting under her desk. The profile picture on the other side was Arthur's. As I leaned over her shoulder, a message popped up. The driver will take you to the hospital after class. Make sure you study hard, understand? Chloe replied. Thank you, Uncle Arthur. I won't disappoint you. I let out a cold laugh. This mother-daughter duo really knew how to put on a show. Stella, why are you just standing there? Class is starting. The teacher's voice startled Chloe. She looked up, caught my eye, and quickly hid her phone in panic. Chloe, I heard from the teacher that you come from a single-parent home, I said casually as I sat down. Since I had never spoken to her kindly before, she looked surprised. Then she put on her usual pathetic act. Even though I don't have a dad, I don't think I'm any less than anyone else. The classic green tea lines. No wonder I was fooled when I was younger. If you're so determined, why are you playing on your phone during class? I mocked. Her face flushed. My mom is in the hospital, so. I cut her off. The teacher said my grades have improved a lot and asked me to help struggling students. I don't have much teaching experience, but a senior is helping me with math today. Why don't you come along? You probably know him. His name is Dominic. The moment Dominic's name left my mouth, Chloe's eyes lit up instantly. She nodded vigorously. Yes, I'd love to. Thank you, Stella. Brenda and Chloe operated on the exact same logic, trying to use men to climb the social ladder. Brenda targeted Arthur. Chloe targeted Dominic. Chapter 9. The sound of a piano echoed from the music room. I pushed the door open to find Dominic sitting elegantly at the grand piano, playing beautifully. Bathed in the sunlight, he looked like a classic teen drama lead. But looking at him only filled me with disgust. Chloe, however, was completely starstruck, her face flushing red. She had clearly dressed up today, letting her long hair fall over her shoulders and wearing a delicate no-makeup look. She looked entirely fragile and desirable. Dominic looked up. His eyes bypassed me completely and landed straight on her, a flash of pure attraction crossing his face. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. Dominic was under strict orders from his father to win my favor so their families could secure an alliance. But I was never his type. In my past life, he wasted a year pretending to care about me before sneaking around with Chloe. In this life, I was going to hand them to each other on a silver platter, saving them the trouble of sneaking around. Dominic, this is my seat partner, Chloe. You don't mind if she joins us, right? I asked with a sweet, tight smile. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine. Of course I don't mind, Dominic said, his eyes never leaving Chloe. During the entire math session, I became a complete ghost. Dominic was practically holding Chloe's hand to teach her the equations. The two of them flirted openly, completely forgetting I was even in the room. Chloe kept up her manipulative act. Stella, there are so many things I don't understand. You're so smart, you won't get mad at me, right? Oh, I don't mind at all. Trash belongs with trash. I think I've learned enough for today. Since you have so many questions, you two can stay here and finish up. I stood up and walked out of the classroom. Before I left, I pulled the key from the lock and locked the door from the outside. 2 days later, Chloe confronted me with a furious, blushing face. Stella, why did you lock the door? Do you have any idea how late Dominic and I were trapped in there before someone let us out? Dominic. Wow, calling him by his first name after just one day? I gave her a cold shrug and ignored her. She threw her chin up proudly. Dominic said your foundations are completely different from mine. He told me he's going to tutor me separately from now on. She thought using Dominic would make me jealous, completely oblivious to the fact that she was walking right into my trap. Over the next few days, my mother kept running to the corporate office. Her expression grew more stressed by the day, and I knew exactly what was happening. In my past life during my sophomore year of college, Arthur's company faced a massive financial crisis because someone reported them for systemic tax evasion. Arthur barely managed to save the company by draining half its assets. My mother was an expert auditor. Spending this much time at the company meant she had definitely found the holes in the books. Mom, I heard a crazy story during our civics class today, I said, handing her a glass of cold tea. She looked distracted, but she still smiled gently at me. I continued. The teacher said a major celebrity got caught for massive tax evasion. They couldn't pay the fines and ended up going straight to prison. My mother froze, staring at me intently. Stella, lately you. I laughed it off quickly. The exams are coming up, so the teacher was just sharing random news to help us relax. But Mom, is tax evasion really that serious? Our family business should make sure everything is completely clean. After leaving the room, I saw her expression shift rapidly before settling into cold calculation. Mom, I hope you make the right choice this time. Chapter 10. Chloe had been dressing in incredibly flashy outfits lately, constantly checking her compact mirror during class. She had been getting tutored by Dominic for 2 months now, and I didn't care how far they had gone. Chloe, how are your sessions with Dominic going? I asked casually. A flash of triumph crossed her eyes before she masked it with her innocent act. He's very patient, but I'm so stupid I think I'll need his help for a long time. I mocked her internally, but put on a concerned face. You know, my dad and Dominic's dad are very close, so Dominic and I have a very deep history. In the future, we might even. The moment I said that, a venomous look flashed in her eyes. Her jealousy was practically bubbling over. I continued. Dominic is so perfect, isn't he? We match so well. He graduates next semester, so he can probably only tutor you for 1 more month. You should really make the most of it. My voice was gentle, leading her exactly where I wanted. Chloe knew I disliked her, but her greed blinded her to the trap. I need to use the restroom, she said, grabbing her phone and rushing out. I followed her quietly and stood outside the stall. Sure enough, she was throwing a tantrum over the phone. Dominic, what exactly is your relationship with Stella? She started crying hysterically, and after a long time of him calming her down, she sniffled. You better not lie to me. You're the only one I care about. A high school girl talking like a soap opera character. I knew her personality perfectly, which was why I pushed her buttons on purpose. When she came back, her face was pale but full of smug satisfaction. I pretended not to notice and said, I invited Dominic to my house this weekend for a study session. Do you want to come along? She clearly wanted to come but played polite. Is that appropriate? I nodded quickly. I had a bad temper before and treated you badly. Consider this my apology. She was just a teenager. Against an adult mind like mine, she stood zero chance. On the way home, I made a quick detour to a pet shop before heading into the house. When I walked in, my mother was sitting on the sofa looking exhausted, staring at a stack of documents. She forced a smile when she saw me. I noticed 2 photos tucked into her files. They were pictures of Brenda and Chloe. Has anything weird happened at school lately? She asked carefully. I knew she was testing me about Chloe. Since she asked, I didn't hide anything. I told her flat out that Arthur had forced Chloe into the school, and that she was Brenda's daughter. He dared to put that woman's daughter right next to you? She slammed her hands on the table and stood up. It wasn't like Arthur planned it to hurt me. Brenda was just greedy. She wanted her daughter to have a taste of luxury while keeping an eye on me. Mom, don't worry. I'm fine. But how did you find out about all of this? My mother finally realized that a regular high school student shouldn't be able to uncover these secrets. I fabricated a quick lie, saying I caught Chloe hiring thugs to corner me, and then overheard Arthur confronting her about it later. That girl hired thugs to attack you? My mother was completely pushed over the edge. Her gentle demeanor shattered into pure fury. Before I could figure out how to calm her down, she reined in her emotions herself. A cold, imperceptible smile touched her lips. Stella, Mom is handling something very important right now. You just. Mom, I support you. No matter what you do. Chapter 11. On the weekend, my mother left for the office early in the morning. Shortly after, Dominic and Chloe arrived together. The hormonal tension between the two teenagers was completely obvious to someone with my life experience. I suppressed my disgust, ran up, and wrapped my arm tightly around Dominic's. Dominic, I've been waiting for you forever. Chloe was pushed to the side, her face twisting with rage. Dominic looked utterly confused by my sudden affection. For the entire morning, I glued myself to him. I even fed him fruit and repeatedly dropped hints. Dominic, my dad said we need to spend more time together. After all, in the future, we're supposed to. I looked down and blushed, letting their imaginations run wild. Faced with my aggressive display of affection, Dominic didn't dare push me away because of his father's orders. Chloe looked like she was about to chew through her own tongue. Once the performance was sufficient, I made an excuse to leave the room. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in a long time. Hello? Who is this? Brenda's voice came through the speaker. I forced my voice to sound panicked and tearful. Aunt Brenda, do you know where my dad is? I can't reach him. You're his secretary, please help me find him. Before she could ask how I got her number, the phone was ripped away from her. Arthur's voice came through loud and clear. Stella? What's wrong? Calm down and talk to me. I immediately broke into a sob. Dad. Dominic? He doesn't like me at all. He's in love with my classmate. They're together right now. In our house. I let my voice trail off, letting his mind fill in the blanks. Arthur didn't think much of it until I dropped the name. Chloe. The line went dead silent for 2 seconds. Then Brenda's voice cut in frantically. That's impossible. She wouldn't dare. Arthur exploded. She dared to hit my daughter. What wouldn't she dare to do? Then he turned back to the phone. They are at the house right now, correct? I'm coming over. After hanging up, I pulled up the bedroom security feed on my iPad. Dominic and Chloe were already tangled up on the bed. Chloe was crying tears of frustration while Dominic comforted her. They were trading intense confessions of love, completely unaware that everything was being recorded. Within 10 minutes, Arthur slammed through the front door. Brenda followed closely behind, her stomach showing a noticeable baby bump. Exactly as I planned. Once Chloe was accused, there was no way Brenda wouldn't rush over to protect her investment. Tears stained my face as I led Arthur up to the bedroom. Dominic and Chloe really delivered. When we threw the door open, they were leaning into each other, clearly about to cross the line. The final nail in the coffin was Dominic's voice echoing through the room. Don't worry, Chloe. How could a girl like Stella ever compare to you? You're the only one I love. Arthur roared, lunging forward to tear Dominic off the bed. Brenda panicked and backed up against the desk. Amidst the absolute chaos, I kept my eyes on 2 small wool felt keychains on the desk. Blending into the commotion, I swiped them and shoved them directly into Brenda's coat pocket. Right at that moment, my mother walked into the house. Arthur, how dare you bring this woman and her daughter into my home? Everyone from my tragic past was gathered in my bedroom. I felt a strange sense of detachment. Dominic still tried to stutter out an excuse. I was just tutoring Stella. We're classmates. Arthur ignored him entirely and slapped Chloe hard across the face. You worthless slut. Chloe had just ruined his perfect plan to secure an alliance with Dominic's wealthy family. He was losing his mind with rage. Brenda rushed forward to shield her daughter, but Arthur shoved her away violently. She lost her footing and crashed heavily onto the floor. My mother and I stood by the door, watching the absolute circus unfold. Within seconds, Brenda curled up on the floor, clutching her stomach in agony. My stomach! It hurt so bad. When Arthur lifted her up, his hands were stained with blood. By the time the ambulance arrived, Brenda had already passed out from the pain. A cold sense of satisfaction washed over me. But when I turned to look at my mother, her eyes were filled with tears. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, hugging her tightly. Her voice was raspy. "Stella, I didn't want your hands getting dirty with this filth. Mom could have handled everything." Chapter 12. Handled everything? What did she mean by everything? After that day, Brenda was hospitalized, and Dominic crawled back to his family in absolute disgrace. When my mother said those words to me, I clearly saw the deep conflict and pain in her eyes. She shouldn't have been able to figure out that I set this up. In her eyes, I was just a child. "Mom, what are you talking about?" She simply shook her head and walked out. Brenda lost the baby, of course. The toys I stuffed into her pocket were made of pure stray dog hair, triggering her massive allergy instantly. But Arthur believed the miscarriage was entirely caused by the stress from Chloe and Dominic's scandal. He beat Chloe until her face was swollen, his rage over losing his son completely consuming him. "Uncle Arthur, it really wasn't me. Stella was the one who invited us over. You're still trying to blame my daughter. Did my daughter force you to screw around with that boy?" When my mother and I arrived at the hospital, that was the exact scene playing out. I felt a surge of triumph. After this incident, nothing Chloe did could ever win Arthur back. My mother, however, was unnaturally calm. Started to worry me. She hadn't said a single word to Brenda or Chloe, and even Arthur was starting to look nervous around her. "Valerie, have you thought about my proposal? The child is gone. What is there left to think about?" My mother's voice was ice cold. "Or did you honestly expect me to accept this woman and share a husband?" Brenda woke up right then, instantly putting on her pathetic victim act. "I never wanted that. I just love Arthur. I don't care about status." My mother cut her off with a sharp laugh. "Shut up. You don't have a seat at this table." I was stunned by how powerful and commanding my mother was acting. In my memory, she was always gentle, never this brutal. But I was incredibly relieved by her strength. At least in this life, she wasn't destroying herself over other people's sins. She pulled a document from her bag. "Divorce papers. Sign them." Arthur panicked. He never expected his compliant, soft-spoken wife to move this fast. He wasn't attached to my mother. He was terrified of losing the 30% shares she held in the company. "I will never divorce you," Arthur screamed, ripping the papers to shreds. My mother didn't even blink. She let out a cold chuckle. "Arthur, I gave you a chance." As we left the hospital, she melted back into the gentle mother I knew. "Stella, don't do anything rash. Leave the rest to me." Her eyes seemed to pierce straight through my soul, making me think of the chemical solution hidden in my backpack. I had spent a month preparing a toxic chemical mixture to use on Dominic and Chloe. They murdered me in my past life. How could I rest without taking their lives in return? "Mom, what do you mean?" "I don't understand," I smiled sweetly. "I don't want your hands stained with blood," she said, her brow furrowed as she stroked my hair. Her gaze grew more complex by the second, and I couldn't decode it. Something was distinctly different about her. But I couldn't stop now. Ever since I saw Dominic again, I had envisioned him dropping dead in front of me 1,000 times. But Chloe needed to be the first to go. Holding the small vial tightly in my hand, I watched Chloe leave her seat to use the restroom. Her water bottle was sitting right there. I hesitated for only a second before dumping the clear liquid inside. It was a colorless, odorless compound I researched from my past life. It wouldn't kill her instantly. It would slowly corrode her internal organs over months. Once it was done, I let out a long breath. This was the most foolproof way to execute my revenge. Before I could watch her drink it, Mrs. Gable called me into her office. "Stella, you need to stay strong. The world changes fast, but your family's issues won't affect your future here." She sounded incredibly strange. Then she dropped the news. Arthur had just been arrested for massive corporate tax evasion. The pieces clicked. This was what my mother had been calculating all along. Shortly after, my phone rang. It was my mom.
"Stella, come.
"I have something to tell you." Chapter 13. When I got home, a massive feast was waiting on the dining table. Before Arthur was arrested, the company shares were successfully restructured. All of his shares have been legally transferred under your name. You will gain full control the moment you turn 18. As for Brenda, you don't have to worry about her anymore. She acted as Arthur's secretary for years and signed off on massive embezzlement schemes. She's going away for a long time. Chloe won't be returning to your school either. And the Dominic's family? Their shell companies were used to launder money for Arthur. I already handed over the falsified ledgers to the federal authorities. Their business is done, and Dominic. Line by line, she listed off the details like she was presenting a corporate report. Over the last 3 months, she hadn't just taken down Arthur. She had systematically destroyed every single person who ruined my past life. It was flawless and absolute. I stared at her in utter shock. She picked up a piece of shrimp with her chopsticks and dropped it into my bowl. You always loved shrimp. Try it, I made it fresh. The pink shrimp was tossed with crushed almonds. The realization hit me like a lightning bolt. My mind went into overdrive. This dish was originally called cashew shrimp. But during my junior year in my past life, I choked severely on a whole cashew and had to be rushed to the emergency room to have it extracted. After that, my mother always substituted cashews with tiny crushed almonds. But I was only a freshman right now. I hadn't choked on a cashew yet in this timeline. Mom! My voice trembled violently, terrified that speaking too loudly would break the illusion. Mom! You came back too, didn't you? I choked out, my heart hammering against my ribs. The woman across from me smiled tenderly. She placed another piece of food in my bowl and whispered, Stella, I missed you so much. Outside, the rain poured down. Inside, my tears fell uncontrollably. Mom, I missed you too. You have no idea how scared I was after you left. I threw myself into her arms like a child, sobbing hysterically, letting out a decade's worth of agony and loneliness. No wonder her personality had shifted so drastically. No wonder she kept telling me not to interfere. She managed to audit a decade of tax records in 3 months despite not touching a ledger in years. No wonder her eyes looked so incredibly heavy with grief every time she looked at me. She was terrified I would ruin my own life seeking revenge. The moment I drowned and woke up in this timeline, my mother had arrived at the exact same moment on the stairs. During her crossing back into this world, she was shown the entire timeline of what happened to her daughter after she died. She saw me getting tortured by Brenda and Chloe, and she saw Dominic and Chloe drowning me in that pool. She returned to this world with one single directive, to protect me at all costs. Mom. But I still tried to kill her. I panicked, remembering the poison I dropped into Chloe's water bottle before leaving school. My mother smiled softly, ruffling my hair. Silly girl. I swapped out that vial weeks ago. Do you really think I'd let you throw your life away? In my past life, when my mom was dying of pneumonia brought on by Brenda's harassment, I had tried to poison them too. And back then, even while bedridden, she discovered my plan and stopped me. Stella, you deserve to live a bright, beautiful life. You are my daughter. A month later, the tax evasion and money laundering trials concluded. Arthur was sentenced to 7 years. Brenda received 3. Dominic's family went completely bankrupt, leaving Dominic saddled with massive debt and forced to drop out of school. Chloe was sent back to her impoverished hometown, where her greedy grandmother immediately married her off to a violent, divorced older man in the next village. 2 years later, my mother had become the absolute CEO of the restructured conglomerate and was recognized as one of the top female entrepreneurs in the country. As for me, I graduated at the top of my class and secured admission to the most prestigious university in the nation. Our lives were finally just beginning.